I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Sandy Claus, Baz Collins, for this week's Written on the Edge, a Season 9, Episode 49 interview. We'll be talking with Lee Pulaski and discussing his recent work, Miss Phoenix Goes Deliciously Mad, as well as his upcoming anthology. So if you haven't seen his previous interviews, let's get to know our guest. Stories are like potato chips. Lee Pulaski cannot write just one. Lee's journey of writing started in 2006, but his love of writing and reading was born much earlier. He learned to read at an age of 3.5, a fact his proud mother will tell anyone, anytime, and anywhere. That love of reading soon turned into a desire to write, ranging from short stories for school to three-act plays that include one that was produced when Lee was in high school. Lee's motivation to write was born by not seeing characters that were like him in the books he absorbed. Since he couldn't find stories about two men finding their happily ever after, he chose to provide that himself. At the time, Lee was sadly single, so the books helped him to provide. I'm talking too much today. Redo. At the time, Lee was sadly single, so the books helped to provide form to his dreams of finding a suitable gentleman. And even after finding his sweetheart Todd, the love stories haven't stopped. With his relocation to Wisconsin in 2011, part of him remembers his hometown fondly, prompting him to go home again and write love stories based in the Chino Valley, Arizona. In these stories, Lee seeks to push boundaries with those books, tackling topics like gay fatherhood and coping with family members in the fierce grip of alcoholism, as well as writing about runaway drag queens and furries. Gonna put a pin in that one for a second. When he finds himself in a rare moment of not writing, he likes to travel around Wisconsin with Todd, checking out street art and out-of-the-way restaurants, among other things, as well as spending some quality time with the latest litter of Australian Shepherd puppies his mother raises. Lee, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. That's an updated bio. You've got some new
Yeah,
stuff in there.
Well, you know what? I figured after 3 years of the same bio, we needed to spice it up a little bit.
there you go.
Nice. So when you were last with us, you teased us with Miss Phoenix, but she's out in the world now.
Oh, yeah. She's here. She's queer. Get used to it.
So I know it's part three of your Chino Valley series. What do people need to know about parts one and two to pick her up?
Okay. Well, originally this wasn't going to be a series. When I wrote White Christmas in the Desert, it was going to be a one-off, but then more stories popped up.
Can't write
And
just one.
so, yeah. White Christmas in the Desert uh, takes place in Chino Valley, Arizona, which all the books in the heart of Chino Valley do. They the story that story revolves around a divorced father who has to move back up to Chino Valley and manage the family farm because his parents are too old to do so. And he brings his young 8-year-old son with him, and he tries to make the transition easier. Uh, and the boy only asks for one thing for Christmas: to have a white Christmas, to have snowfall, which in Arizona is a little trickier than you think. So, some of the characters from that book are in this book, Miss Phoenix Goes Deliciously Mad. The second book in the series also has some characters moving forward. That was Heart Song of the Lonesome Road, and that involved um, basically a journalist who got into a bad situation in Wisconsin, and now the only job available for him is in the small town newspaper in Arizona. While he's there, he meets this bar owner who's also an aspiring songwriter and an amazing individual, and who also provides a safe space for LGBTQ people.
Nice.
And so we'll have a couple of those characters in Miss Phoenix as well.
All right. So what brings Miss Phoenix to the valley?
Well, it wasn't intentional because Miss Phoenix she hails from Florida, grew up there and everything. And everybody knows how wonderful and inclusive Florida is these days.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, y'all stop laughing.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, besides the governor's warm welcome, which everybody knows is an attack on the LGBTQ community,
Mhm.
he also has an abusive boyfriend, becomes ex-boyfriend, that he needs to get away from. So he sneaks out after one of his drag performances, has a box truck all ready to packed up and everything, and is bound for California, where it's a lot more gay friendly and everything. Well, en route, got to cross through Arizona, and the engine blows. So there's Miss Phoenix, still in drag attire and everything, and wondering, oh, great, what am I going to do now? And this guy comes along, turns out to be a pig farmer, and he just he offers to provide a place to stay, knows of a mechanic that can hopefully fix the box truck so that Miss Phoenix can continue along to California and those sunny vistas, those ocean views, and all that happy jazz.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't quite work that way
It never does.
because while Miss Phoenix, also known as Stephen Kramer,
Yep.
is there, he discovers that there are some things in Chino Valley that, in his opinion, need fixing. And the first one of those is the library story hour, which everybody loves library story hours. And of course, that's been a topic when drag queens have gotten involved.
Mhm.
But once Stephen discovers he's he's got this situation where the library storyteller is extremely old and falls asleep in the middle of the story hour, Steven decides, okay, we got to fix this situation. At least give them a little bit of pizzazz while I'm here. So dresses up in drag, in best costume, and crashes the library story hour while the old lady is snoozing and says, you know what? Let me tell you all a story. And proceeds to do so and does very well. Unfortunately, the more conservative folks find out about it and start to raise a stink and even threaten the library director's job, which the library director had nothing to do with it. Never
Right.
scheduled a drag queen story hour. This
Right.
drag queen just strode right in and said, you know what? I'm going to tell you all a story while the old lady here is sleeping, and that's where we begin.
So Miss Phoenix obviously stays.
Oh yes,
Does Miss Phoenix find love? I should say Steven.
Miss Miss Phoenix slash Steven does find love. In fact, uh, sidebar.
Sure.
Certainly.
Sorry, I was just thought I had a sneeze coming on.
Ah.
So okay. Anyway, getting back to it.
And sidebar.
So Miss Phoenix does find love in the form of the pig farmer who rescues him, Mitch. And at first, it's a little difficult for Mitch to accept Steven's eccentricities. I mean, he doesn't mind so much dressing up in a dress and all that, but once Steven starts meddling in Chino Valley affairs and winds up threatening the job of the library director, who's a dear friend of his, he's like, okay, wait a minute. Now we need to talk about this. And So Miss Phoenix feels the need. Okay, I didn't mean to create this situation, but since I did, let's try to fix it. And proceeds to come up with some funding that has been lost as a result of her crashing the event, and hopes that that will be enough to convince the library board. Okay, don't ask the library director. We've got the funding we need to keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of that situation, she comes across a couple other things that she needs to feels the need to fix as well.
I noticed you
She
said meddling in the affairs plural earlier, so yes.
Yes. Oh yes. Wait, there's more.
But wait.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, the next situation that Stephen runs into is dealing with the pig farmer's daughter, whose full name is Theodora, but goes by Theo, and dresses up like a tomboy and everything. And because, I mean, on a farm, you don't bounce around in
Right.
frilly
Right. Yeah.
dresses usually.
Right.
But of course, Theo's at an age where the other girls in her class are discovering their femininity and dressing up and looking beautiful and everything. And they make no bones about teasing Theo about looking ugly. And so Stephen decides to step in and make Theo beautiful, and proceeds with the makeup, making a dress and everything. And then Theo comes to find out that even with dressing up and everything, the mean girls in her school are still going to be total bitches.
Right. Well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it teaches her a lesson that everybody is different and everybody walks down their own path. And there's nothing wrong with dressing up in overalls and tending to pigs. There's nothing wrong with dressing up in frilly dresses. There's nothing wrong with being different and standing out.
It's just generally
Mm-hmm.
acceptance all around. Just, live your
Right.
truth and move on.
Absolutely.
Who would have thought, Well, don't give away the whole thing because we want people to read it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Let me ask
go
it
ahead.
this way. Did you intend to make this one about cultural events? Because it feels like it is more so than the first two.
I think I did. I mean, the library story hour was definitely a topic I wanted to tackle,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't sure where to go from there. And as I proceeded to write and got into the story hour, I realized, okay, we've got others in the area that need a drag queen's gentle touch, and it just evolved from there. And I mean, from helping people feel beautiful to helping high school jocks come out of the closet and all that. I mean, there's a lot to be said for this book. It's definitely attracted a lot of attention at some of the book fairs that I've attended, some of the Pride
Nice.
events.
Nice.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. What was your question, Baz? I'm sorry for interrupting. Baz?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked what your question was, and I apologized for interrupting.
Oh, sorry. I'm sitting here just marveling at the revelations that we've been given so far. Now, the question that I had was, is this something that, because it sounds like it was done as a pants rider kind of thing. You just did it by the seat of your pants. Um, is that the case, or did you have a plan and did your characters railroad you into something that you weren't anticipating? And that's how this whole thing evolved, or, tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I mean, I wanted this to address some of the cultural issues, but I didn't have all the cultural issues specifically in mind besides the story hour. But definitely, I mean, I knew the high school jock was going to be an antagonist for a good portion of the book, and then I thought, what if he's bullying people because he's gay? Which, I mean, is the common belief that the homophobes are being mean and nasty because secretly they're just like us.
Hmm. Yep.
I want to just give a small short story that my husband and I still giggle over to this day. We were
Mhm.
going into a grocery store. This is actually going to highlight exactly what you just said. We were going to a grocery store and they had a sports team out front selling candy, just how some of the people do it at grocery stores. And as we're walking in there, we realized they're football players from a local high school. And they start to, and my husband walks up and they approach us, and the one kind of big guy kind of says, that, would you like to support us, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't have any cash on us on hand. So we said, well, we'll see when we come back out. And then they got to mention, about the fact that it's for the football team. And my husband said, well, I played for Clemson. I, played in high school once too. And he said, and they asked him what position. And so Jay told him, and then Jay thought he'd fire back. Well, what do you play? And he goes, oh, I go both ways. And my husband said, I'm sure you do.
Nice. Oh goodness.
Nice.
That boy had no idea what we that line is. Oh, okay.
All right. So, Lee, you also have an anthology that is out as of the release of this episode.
Yes. December 20th. It's going to be out. Anthology called Fables from the Other Side of the Rainbow.
Nice.
And basically, this is just some of the short stories that I've done. When I first got published, one of the things that the publishing company that I was with at the time also did publishing of short stories online and
Mhm.
selling those. And so I did a couple of those, and they were enjoyable. And after we parted ways, and I delved into the world of self publishing, for a while I didn't write any short stories because my focus was on the bigger picture. And then a few years ago, I got to thinking, you know what? What if I did some more short stories, especially in the times when I'm developing writer's block on a bigger story,
Mhm.
focus on that and be able to keep the creative juices flowing, even if it's not on the particular book at hand.
Right.
And so in the end, I came out with 8 short stories altogether. And the various ones. One of my favorites is actually a story about a lesbian whose grandfather has passed away, and she's having to go through all of his effects and discovers these love letters, but they're not to grandma; they're to another man.
Wow.
And so now she has to find this man, find out the full story about her grandfather,
Mhm.
and it's very heartwarming. I've also got a Christmas one. That was one of the ones that I did in the beginning about a disc jockey who finds a cat at the radio studio,
Oh.
and the tag has all the information on where the cat's from. So, as a gesture of goodwill, goes to the farm and meets the farmer, and they spend the night together, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful way of bringing two
Best
people together during the
reward
holidays.
ever.
Nice.
Oh yes.
So earlier I put a pin in the furries comment. Is this where this comes into play?
It doesn't in the anthology, but
Okay.
in Miss Phoenix,
Oh.
there are furries. In fact, the furries are the ones that are tormented in the beginning by the high school jock.
Got it.
Yes. A couple of high school students like dress it up. One is a bird, and one is a snow fox, and which ironically, snow fox in the desert. It's just
Right?
that might be a future story, but at the same time, I've been trying to include more of the subgenres
Hmm.
of our community, and furries are one of them.
Right.
So it just made sense to have them be part of the story and show that aside from dressing up as animals, they're just like us.
Hmm. So the anthology, coming back to that,
Yes.
titled Fables from the Other Side of the Rainbow.
Hmm.
Does each story have a twist on the rainbow? Is that the uniting theme?
Not specifically. I mean, I chose the title because the rainbow tends to be in our main theme as the LGBTQ community. So
Yep.
my point is, each of the characters are gay, lesbian, what have you, basically part of the community.
Hmm.
So basically showing that these are our stories. These are what we want folks to know about our community,
Nice.
good, bad, and indifferent.
Nice. All right. So is there anything about either book you want folks to know that we didn't think to ask?
Well, let's see. Um, well, for those joining by video, here's the cover,
Look at that
There
and
you
picture.
go.
it is that cover that has caused to catch everybody's attention when
Hmm.
I'm at the various book fairs, pride events, that sort of thing. And honestly, this is the only copy I've got, my own personal copy left. And so, right, so I mean, it's definitely generated a lot of attention. And
Brilliant.
I mean, with the shot of a beautiful drag queen, why wouldn't it?
Hmm.
Right. Right.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know you've done this year's Get to Know You questions.
Hmm.
So Bez had a different request for you.
Yeah. You want to give us a reading?
Yes.
Oh my! I thought you'd never ask. This is such an honor. Sure, sure. Since we've been talking so much about the library story hour, we'll just go there.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. As Pepper took Orion to the history section, Mitch couldn't help but chuckle. Pepper always managed to keep her wits about her, even with dumb jocks and geriatric storytellers in her midst. Mitch, being in the same position, would have probably told Sonia to take her money, not to mention her 1 foot in the grave mother, and shove it. And he would have poked Orion in the keister with a pitchfork for suggesting that copying someone else's report was the right way to get a good grade. Mitch debated whether he should check out another book or two when the front door opened again, and Amara Mitchell breezed in. She was the host and founder of CVNews.com, which did video segments similar to television news stations, but they were more in depth and usually focused on the good things in the community. Mitch liked to watch her pieces online at night after putting Theo to bed and kick back in his recliner. Hey, you're Amara Mitchell, aren't you? Amara flashed her pearly whites. Why, yes, I am. I take it you're a loyal viewer. Mitch held out his hand. I'm Mitch Bradshaw. I run a pig farm on the outskirts of Chino Valley. Ah, so you must never have any difficulty bringing home the bacon. Mitch laughed at the well timed pun. Touche, I left myself wide open for that one. So, what brings you to the library? Research for a segment? I'm not sure. I heard something through the grapevine that there's a new drag queen in town, and I was curious whether Pepper had heard anything about the visitor. Mitch chewed on Amara's inquiry for a moment. He knew Stephen was the drag queen she was talking about, but was Stephen ready to be in a bigger spotlight than the one he was in at the Spectrum Saloon the night before? Mitch wondered if he should call the house and ask Stephen directly whether he wanted to be interviewed. He quickly decided that action was unnecessary when Stephen, dressed as Miss Phoenix, strolled into the library with the two furries that were at the Spectrum Saloon last night, plus one more furry Mitch hadn't seen, who appeared to be a purple wolf. The farmer also couldn't help but notice that Theo was bringing up the rear with a big smile on her face. Greetings, bibliophiles and soccer moms, Stephen exclaimed with his hands raised in the air as she looked like she was floating in a floor-length, long-sleeved neon pink gown with matching feathers and sequins. Have no fear. Today's black and white story hour is about to get a splash of color from Florida's favorite drag queen storyteller. Somebody point me in the direction of those adorable little rascals, and then we could get this party started. Theo took Stephen's hand. Just through that door at the far end. That's the children's room. Oh, thank you, Theo. Now, why don't you be a lamb and go find me a book I can read to the children right after we wake Mrs. Rip Van Winkle, assuming she hasn't just up and expired right in the middle of the story. Oh, thank you. As Theo hurried towards the children's room in search of a book for young readers, Mitch, who had been standing in shock with his mouth agape, stepped in front of the brightly dressed Miss Phoenix. What do you think you're doing? Stephen pursed his ruby red lips. I'm saving the future of literacy for this community. These story hours are supposed to encourage young children to read, but all Ingrid Springborn is demonstrating is that consuming books is a snooze. I might not be here long, but I feel it's my responsibility to help any organization that allows children to dream and desire to be anything they want to be. Mitch, why don't you come along and grab a chair? The show's about to begin. Stephen click-clacked down the hall to the children's room with the furries following behind, pantomiming animal actions as curious patrons looked on in awe and confusion. Amara walked up to Mitch and put a hand on his shoulder. I just love libraries. They have everything, and I mean everything you could ever dream of. I just hope this Miss Phoenix does interviews. She pulled out her cell phone, set it to be a video camera, and chased after the colorful new visitors. After taking a few moments to process what he'd just seen, Mitch rushed down the hallway as well to see what kind of trouble Stephen was about to start. He stepped into the children's room just in time to see Stephen standing behind Ingrid Springborn, who appeared to have dozed off once again, and waving to the kids. Hello, little ones. My name is Miss Phoenix, and I'm your storyteller for today. I apologize for my tardiness, and I'm sure your parents will talk to you about the importance of being on time. But I'm so appreciative of Miss Ingrid Springborn keeping you all entertained while I got my act together. Stephen glanced at Ingrid asleep and winced. Oh, the poor dear, she's all tuckered out. I think we should just wheel her over to a corner and let her enjoy her nap. He indicated for the purple wolf to gently wheel the yellow plastic chair with Ingrid in it over to an area where there were beanbag chairs. Pepper poked her head into the room and whispered to Mitch, What the hell is going on? Mitch shrugged. As near as I could tell, it looks like a drag queen and a trio of furries has crashed your children's story hour. Do you want me to stop them? Pepper watched the children's unstoppable fascination with the new visitors and shook her head. Let's just see where this goes. The kids are absolutely hypnotized right now. I just hope word doesn't get out to Sonia. I'll just leave it at that.
And that's beautiful. And you know what? That you ended on a perfect note, because that's what kids see.
Yeah.
It's the adults that put all this fear and weirdness into it. The kids just see color and sparkle and
fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm sorry, but I'd rather have a drag queen any day over some freaky ass clown, because I have a friend who ran a makeup shop and costume shop, and she knew clowns personally, and she said, "You do not want these people near your children." So.
But enough about the politicians.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But
well said. Awesome. So I know you're on the tour circuit for promoting your books, but you also hit a radio appearance, didn't you?
Yes, I did. In fact,
Wisconsin Public Radio, right?
I know, and this just came out of the blue a couple months ago. Wisconsin Public Radio was wanting to do a piece on the fact that LGBTQ romances, the sales are on the rise, and so they chose me, and they chose a lady named Nance Sparks, who's down towards the southern part of the state, and talked with us for a good 30 minutes about what we do, whether we've seen increases in sales in our books. And I hadn't at the time, but that was just before Miss Phoenix came out. So
very cool.
Things have improved since then considerably. But I mean, it was just amazing to be chosen for that, because I mean, I'm not a big time author by any means. I mean,
but
I do it because I love it, and hopefully if someday book sales go through the roof, hooray. But to be chosen out of all the possible authors, that was
a win. It's a win. Take the win. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was just amazing. And I enjoyed being able to talk about what I love, and just to be able to broadcast my message all across the state of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, here I broadcast all over the world, but
yeah, well,
but I mean, with National Public Radio, you know that a lot more people are listening per square mile. and it's just it was just
Plus, the
amazing.
last time I checked, Wisconsin was in the world, so you're still covered.
It is. Wow.
Well, I mean, also WPR is affiliated with the university, but they have, they stream it globally too. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, yeah, I guess it is, and I guess it has gone out. And I got a couple of messages on my website after the interview that they were so happy that I was spreading this kind of joy to the world. I mean,
nice.
to be able to expose people to a variety of stories that help people to learn about the world they live in and also be entertained at the same time. I mean, that's pretty much the goal
Win-win.
of any
Yep.
author.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done.
Yes.
So, where should people go to keep up with your updates?
Well, let's see. There's my website, www.leepulaski.com. And there's also an author page that I have on Facebook that Lee Pulaski author. And just a couple weeks ago, I started a Blue Sky account.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and it'll just be under my regular name. It doesn't have author
You
attached
cross
to
the
it.
rainbow bridge to the wonderland of blue sky.
But
Very
yes,
nice.
just had to go through the spectrum and everything.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool. Any final words of wisdom?
Well, let's see. Keeping on with the Chino Valley series, I I actually just got back from a trip to Chino Valley. Took a week's vacation there with Todd. He'd never
Nice.
seen Arizona before, and one of the first things he uttered was, "You've got mountains."
It's really funny how people don't think that in New Mexico and Arizona have mountains. It's just really funny, and
Oh
people
yeah,
are like freaking out of the fact that you can go to Taos in New Mexico and there's snow during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
because it's got mountains.
yeah. And the trip was also a chance for me to check and make sure that I was being fairly accurate with my writing.
True. Had you
And
seen that area since the area you kind of have based your writing on? Have you seen it since the pandemic?
uh I was there briefly in 2021
Okay.
because my father and my grandmother had both passed away within a couple of days of each other, so I had to attend their funerals. But
I'm sorry.
yeah, but I did take a little time to explore around and everything. Got to do it more in depth this trip with Todd and everything, and I mean we just had an excellent time. So I mean I'm sure it's going to recharge me enough to be able to come up with more stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, folks, from us here at Written on the Edge, Baz and I would love to wish you the happiest of holidays, whichever holiday is near and dear to your heart. Look at him over there with his little Santa robe. Isn't he adorable?
I even have rosy cheeks. I don't know how
You
the hell
do.
that happened.
And that's
I'm
not
like,
a filter.
Yeah, no, it's not a filter. I'm like, what the hell did I do here?
And we would like to extend a huge thank you to Lee Pulaski, not only for being a fierce advocate of gay writing and our very unique families, but also for coming and telling us about it. Lee, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's always a joy coming back time after time and being able to share things with you guys.
Awesome.
We catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. So if you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. The show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.roguepodcast.com. Tune in next year for your queer media fix.
Oh. That's the best I can do.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.